Hawk was once the preeminent alternative sport video game franchise. Countless iterations saw the once proud series ride slowly into oblivion until EA's Skate came along and finally knocked it off its perch. Rather than stay the course, Activision went back to the drawing board, drew inspiration from its successful Guitar Hero franchise, and hit back with Tony Hawk Ride, a $120 game that comes with a motion-sensing skateboard controller. Unfortunately, it misses the mark in just about every possible way. Too unfriendly and unwieldy for casual gamers, and too imprecise and thin for the hardcore, this ride is one that everybody should stay away from. Tony Hawk Ride is separated into party play, online multiplayer, and single-player campaign or exhibition modes. The campaign takes you across a half dozen or so cities around the world, each with a handful of smallish areas to skate in. At the end, it tells you that you are on some quest laid out by Tony Hawk, but really it's just a series of short challenges requiring you to skate quickly or trick through an area. Even if the gameplay were solid, the presentation around it is so infuriatingly bad that it alone is enough to ruin the experience. I'll just name a few of the many disasters here. The game does not tell you how many session points you have earned upon completing a challenge, requiring you to exit out and scroll through menus to see exactly how you did. Tony Hawk Ride requires you to re-choose goofy or regular stance between every little section of gameplay. For some reason it can't remember that. And the load times. Don't get me started on the load times. You'll spend just as much time navigating the atrocious menus and sitting through load screens as you will playing Tony Hawk Ride. Supposedly, Tony Hawk Ride mimics the real thing through the use of an expensive skateboard-shaped controller, and the idea of a more immersive skateboarding game isn't a bad one. The reality is that controlling the game isn't precise enough for the hardcore, and the learning curve for doing anything beyond using the skateboard equivalent of button mashing is far too steep for any casual gamer. There are 3 settings of difficulty. The easiest, labeled as casual, does the majority of the legwork for you. Steering is limited, and the player is just along for the ride, shuffling the board around at the right time to pull off tricks. Kick up the nose and you'll do an ollie. Tilt back or forward after ollieing and you can do a kick or heel flip. Reach down and cover one of the 4 sensors with your hand and the guy on screen will do a grab or invert trick. All of these controls work sometimes. Most of the time you'll just do a random trick that you weren't really trying to do, or no trick at all. The only part of the game that feels solid is when you're doing a manual. Turn up the difficulty and you'll have to worry more about falling and steering, neither of which is handled in any sort of satisfactory way thanks to a poor physics and collision detection system, an overly sensitive steering setup, a bad camera, and a generally unrefined feel to the game. And so Tony Hawk Ride straddles a very uncomfortable fence. Put the game on casual and it feels like it plays itself. Turn up the difficulty and you don't get anything close to real skating, you just get a boring, thin, and unpolished game that will be extremely frustrating for the casual gamer. There are a few multiplayer modes, including an offline hot potato system that has players passing the board, each playing one at a time, as well as an online mode. Both suck. The party play requires far too much loading screens and downtime for any real fun. The online mode has no interactions between the players, they simply play by themselves. The Wii version doesn't even have the online mode, instead substituting the option to use your Miis in the game, though you'll have to unlock that on each level and on each separate difficulty by playing the campaign. Tony Hawk Ride falls flat. The load times, menu system, and general presentation is about as bad as it possibly can be. Once you do get into a game, it just isn't any fun. It doesn't work on a casual level, and the hardcore skating fans would be much better suited simply picking up a real board and hitting the pavement. Activision had a decent idea in Tony Hawk Ride, but the execution is simply not here. The best I can say about Ride is that it has a good soundtrack, and a 5 or 6-year-old might have fun hopping around on the board. For the full written review, head to IGN.com.